Hi and welcome back to another Mixed Media Tuesday. Today I'm going to alter the cover of one of my art journals, and one of the most common questions that I get is what do I do with the covers? So here is a smaller example of an art journal that I have already finished, and I can definitely go ahead and cover up the front. Just because this is a soft cover journal, I wouldn't do it from the beginning, otherwise I would add bulk in the front, and when I work on this page it would make it quite difficult. It's the same thing for this type of journal where I'm working on both pages, so I wouldn't go ahead and cover the front before I finish with the journal. This way I know that I'm not going to make a mess on a beautiful cover that I have created. However, with my ring journal it is completely different, since I can take out the pages and work on them. Plus this is really hard and I can just take it away, work on the cover, and every time I work on a page I just take it out, put it back in, so I will not make a mess on the front. A great way to start an art journal or a cover is to use rice paper. There is an amazing variety of designs that you can use, and since I absolutely love blues, I decided to go with this lovely rice paper with those beautiful flowers. I'm going to stick everything down with mixed media glue, and I like to start at the top just to make sure that I grab the rice paper. If you end up with some wrinkles, it's not a big issue. Remember, this can work in your advantage and it's going to give you some dimension and texture on your background. I'm not frugal with my mixed media glue. I apply a good amount of glue there, and I'm also going to go over the rice paper at the top. I need to make sure that I have a good layer of mixed media glue at the top because it works as a sealer at the same time. And remember, this is the cover of my art journal and I want to make sure that it is nicely protected. When I designed this ring journal, I made sure that the cover is quite neutral, so you can easily alter the cover and make it your own. And at the same time it provides a great base for any rice paper, since it is white and it's going to help all those colors pop. Don't forget to pop the brush that you used for the glue inside a jar of water. It is water based and it's going to dilute, so you can use this brush again and again. I'm using my heat gun to make sure that this layer is completely dry, the layer of mixed media glue, and then I'm going to use a buffer and I'm going to file the edges. You can definitely use your scissors if you like, I just like the look by doing that. Keep in mind that just like always, I will link everything I use in the description down below as well as on my blog. Now with my file I'm going over the holes, and there are already eyelets there in the cover, so this is going to take care of that as well, and let's move on to the next step. Now, although this is a beautiful rice paper and design, it is going to be my background and I will add focal points on top. So this is quite vibrant and it is not going to help my focal points pop. That's why I'm using some white paint and I'm going with a brayer over the design. I'm not going to cover it up completely, however, by adding this white paint on top, it kind of pushes that design far at the background. Now I'm going to work on the border a little bit. I'm using my dye inks, and here I'm playing with blue navy. I'm going to add the blue navy on some of the edges, and then I'm going to switch into coffee. I'm going for a slightly vintage look and feel, so I will ink up some of the corners as well and blend those two colors together for a lovely border. By the way, if you wish so, you can definitely repeat the same process on the back cover of your journal. I'm not going to bother at all, I'm just going to leave it as it was. Now let's play with the stencil. This is a stencil from my first collection. I'm going to use volume paste, which is a modeling paste, really thick, and it keeps its volume nicely. I also like it because it dries really quickly. And I'm going over the stencil mainly on the areas where the text is. Now I'm going to add some splatters. For that I'm using shadow black ink that I diluted with water. And I'm going to leave the cover aside to dry, and I'm going to show you from which collection this rice paper is. This is from the Sea Dream collection. It is a really older collection by Stamperia, maybe probably from last year. And I did use it in another project previously, but I absolutely love all those gorgeous blues. So I will use this paper pad, the 6x6 one, as well as many of the cutouts from the die cut set. Remember that since I'm working today on a cover, I can go as dimensional as I like, which is something that I usually avoid when I'm working on the inside of a journal. So let's go really dimensional today. I'm looking for a neutral area from this paper pad, and I'm just going to cover up this circle. This is quite thick, it is made out of chipboard, so it's going to give a lovely texture and dimension on my element. I used my scissors to cut off the excess, and then I'm going to use a file to buff all around the edges. And then of course this element needs to be part of the whole page, of the whole project, so I'm going to add colors that I used on the background to kind of bring everything together. So here I'm inking with coffee, and again I'm going to bring in some blue navy. I will use foam tape at the back to stick this on top of my project, and this way I end up having lots of dimension, and at the same time I'm able to tuck underneath this circle other elements later on. And since we can go dimensional today, let's play with molds. This is a lovely mold from the Atelier collection, one of my favorites for sure, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways to play with them. One, and the easiest way, is to use soft clay or any other type of clay. All I'm going to do is to just pick up the amount that I need. I'm going to place it inside the tiny little brush, super cute, and then I'm going to use my spatula and remove any excess. Just make sure that you press it quite enough in there, and if you use the soft clay, there is no need for you to condition the clay with your hands. Just as you grab the clay from the bag, just place it inside the mold. And I'm going to put the extra clay inside the bag, and then I like to keep that inside a Ziploc just to make sure that it's not going to dry on me, and I can use it again and again. So this way you don't create any plastic, however you need to wait for it to dry. Another way to create your molds is to use two-part resin. Here I am showing you a little set that I got from Amazon, which is really handy. All you do is to just peel off the excess from the previous use of those cups, and you don't have to throw them away, you don't have to wash them. The resin I'm using today is a two-part resin that is fast drying, and I'm measuring the same amount of part A and part B. It is really easy to use these cups because there are markings on the outside. I'm stirring, and as I stir you will see that they become milky but then back into transparent again. You will feel some heat on your hands, and then you know that it is starting to cure. So it is time to start pouring, and I do have here more amount that I need. This is something that I usually do. Since you are into this process, go ahead and make even more elements for future projects. When you are playing with resin, make sure that you open your windows and also wear gloves. Forget that I'm not wearing gloves. The correct way is to use them. However, I know that I'm not messy at all, and I can usually do this without touching the resin with my fingers. One thing to keep in mind at this stage is that you need to be quite fast. Don't mess around a lot because the resin is going to cure inside the cup. Ask me how I know. By the time I pour everything, you will see that some of the areas start to turn white, which means that it is starting to cure. Even when it turns completely white, make sure that you leave it for a couple of extra minutes just to make sure that it is nice and cured. Now, when you take it out of the mold, you will find that it is quite flexible. And that means that you can use it on curved objects. However, if you use the one with the clay, you will find that it cracks. So there are benefits, advantages and disadvantages when you compare resin with clay. With resin, you know that you create elements out of your molds that are going to be quite sturdy, they are not going to crack and they are not going to break. However, you do create plastic. So choose the method of creating molds which is best for you, and then once it is dry you can go ahead and cover it up completely. Here I'm using the matte Superbase. It is black and it's going to dry completely matte, which is going to turn my surface into a non-porous surface that is going to take the next product beautifully. So to add some shine and color on my mini brush, I'm going to use Stardust. There are 7 colors available and it is Pigment, Shiny Pigment by Stamperia. In order to use those, you need to somehow help them attach and grab into your project. For that, you need to work with beeswax. So all I do is to dip my finger in beeswax and then I touch the Stardust, any color that you like, and apply it on top of my brush. Since I'm going with blues for my project, I decided to have the bristles blue, and hopefully you can see through the video how shiny this product is. This is going to bring out the texture of the brush and it's going to bring it to life. So the blue that I used on the bristles is called Blue Neptune. Now I'm using the Silver Moon for the ferrule of the brush. And you can easily layer the colors if you like, so you can go with silver on top of the blue with no issues at all. Now for the handle of my mini brush I'm going with copper. It is a very satisfying process, and as I'm doing that I'm having so much fun. So it is a joy for me to be working on 3-dimensional projects as well, since I usually work completely flat inside the pages of an art journal. Now I don't want to have the handle of the brush so clean and just with one color, so I'm going to mix up a few more colors since I'm actually playing with all the little pots that I have and I want to see how everything looks. Now to embellish my mini brush a little bit, I'm going to use a string and I'm going to tie a bow. And I will use my scissors to cut off the excess. You can definitely leave those tails long if you wish so. Now I used my spatula with volume paste, which is white, and I went around the circle to kind of cover up some of the design. I missed filming that, but hopefully you can see what I did, just to make sure that I don't have too much color around the circle, and this way I can help all the elements that I'm going to stick down to pop even more. For this same reason, I'm also inking up the edges and I'm going with coffee for that. And finally, it's time to put together my composition. For that, I am going with my hot glue gun to stick everything down just to make sure that they are going to stay put. You can definitely go with strong glue, whatever you have. I'm just going to stick down some of those flowers to create a cluster, and on top of them I'm going to stick the mini brush that we created with the resin. And of course for me this is the most difficult part when creating clusters, to know when to stop. So in any case I just added a few extras of those chipboards, and if you find that those elements don't pop too much against the background, you can always go ahead and add some shadows. For that I'm using a shadow brush. This is a very stiff brush with my coffee ink pad, and I'm going around my flower composition, around my cluster. Remember that this ink is water reactive, which means that if you want to soften up those edges, you can always go back with a brush that you dipped inside water. I also added lots of white splashes. Lately I'm using my label maker to print out whatever I need for my quotes, and I went with Create Happiness, perfect for the title of my art journal. I'm going to cut it in 2 pieces and stick it on top of my page. I'm using a thin brush marker and I'm going to outline those 2 words, and if you notice I did use foam tape at the back, so they are a little bit raised. And here is what you do when you don't know when to stop or you're having too much fun with this project. So I'm adding a few white pearls in some areas here and there, and this is going to finish off my project. Here are some close-up photos on the project that I made for today, altering the cover of my ring journal. I was able to show you lots of techniques as well as new products and how to use them through this video. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next time.